Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to my podcast, Don't Get a Therapist Yet. And today I have a very special guest. Her name is Dr. Stephanie Fitzgerald, and she's a clinical psychologist and a writer. And she's going to be giving some amazing content today. So please stay on the line right to the end because this is a really special episode. So thank you, Stephanie, for coming to be a guest on my podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And I just wonder perhaps you could tell the audience a little bit more about yourself because they might not have heard you before. And I mean, I know a little bit about you, but tell us a little bit more about your interests and what brings you here today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, I'm a clinical psychologist by background. I'm a neuropsychologist by specialism, which is a very fancy way of saying I'm very interested in the human brain. And clinically, I'm very interested in helping people to have their best day at work. So really supporting them to utilize their brain to make sure that they are happy, healthy, safe and engaged at work. So I'm really interested in supporting individual well-being in the workplace. But part of my tool set that I like to equip people with is around journaling. So you mentioned there, I'm a writer. I've got 5 books out there in the world, but I also love the practice of journaling. And I'm really passionate about introducing people to journaling because once you've bought your notebook, it is a completely free resource that you can tap into at any time. And I think it's such a powerful tool. So I do a lot of introduction to journaling webinars. I have free journaling workshops which run throughout the year. I do seasonal journaling workshops, so welcoming the season and the nature of the season onto our pages. And I offer people free journaling prompts through my Instagram, which is at @StephFitzWrites. So I really try and give people access, as much access as possible, to get them thinking and get them scribbling. So yes, very, very excited to be here and to be talking about all things journaling today.
And a very busy full life. I mean, what a story. What a level of activity you have, Stephanie. I mean, that's impressive as well. And I've got a confession to make. As a therapist myself, I encourage journaling, and then people are left with, well, yeah, but how? What do I do then? The fear of someone reading it or worrying about putting something down and making things worse. I think that's what we're sort of talking about today, isn't it? And you're the expert. You're the journaling per se, god of journaling, or your goddess of journaling. You're up there in your expertise. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. So perhaps we could just start by perhaps explaining a little bit more about how journaling actually helps your mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that journaling helps our mental health, the way that I like to think of it is it's harnessing your wild emotions. So I think when something is on our minds, if someone's irritated us, if we're very anxious about something, we're very stressed about a situation, it feels all encompassing and it can almost be like there's this cloud or this volume of emotion that is surrounding us. It's taking up every corner of our headspace. It's, really, really all encompassing. And what journaling does is it harnesses, it almost funnels all that down to the ink. And so when you write it down, it is as though you're taming all that wild emotion and you're pinning it down onto the page. And then from a neuropsych perspective, when you read that writing back, your brain will read that objectively. So when you're reading it, it will read it as though you were reading anything, any piece of writing, fiction, non-fiction. It will process it as writing. And so it means that you can take this all-encompassing emotion and make it very doable, make it very tangible, make it very easy to process, rather than it feeling just wild and out of control and as though you don't have any say over how it's impacting on you. So I think that's definitely the first thing, is it just helps us harness our wild emotions. But I think the other thing that journaling is so good at is helping us spot patterns. So if you and I were journaling about our day, and every day for 4 weeks, we were saying, oh, I really wanted to go to that yoga class. Oh, I really wanted to do that thing, but I didn't get a chance. Oh, I really wanted to read that book, but it's gathering dust on my bedside table or whatever it may be. The pattern we would notice is I'm making no time for myself. I want to do these things, but something is blocking me. And so therapeutically, reviewing your journals can be a really useful tool to track, where is my mood? Where is my energy? What do I keep writing about? And sometimes I notice things where I'll have in my journal for 2 years, oh, I'm really keen to do this, or I really want to do this. And it just makes me ask the question, do I want to do that? Because I haven't done it in 2 years. Is it something, is it an external pressure? Is it something that I'm putting myself under pressure to do, but maybe I don't want to do? So again, it can really help with our mental health because it can help us track our mood, spot patterns in our behavior, identify negative self-talk, or identify areas where maybe we need to be expressing more pride in how we handled something or more self-compassion rather than beating ourselves up about something. And
Mm.
again, when you write it down, your brain will read it as evidence. And it's like, oh, no, wait, actually, I thought I was a hot mess at work that day, but it turns out I managed this really stressful situation really well. And so I think it's so useful for containing that wild emotion, but also helping us track the impact of it on us.
That's a fantastic answer. And, as a therapist myself, so many people come about, regulating their emotions or feeling overwhelmed by their emotion. And the way you explained it, the way that the brain reads it back and actually sort of processes that and sort of sees it as a sort of like a processing rational response is amazing. It sounds so good. And that technique can really help so many people to know that just by simply writing things down and reading them back can help to process those emotions. And so much about patterns. I so agree with you there, Stephanie, is to be, that self-awareness that writing can give you, that it's just all muddled in your head, but when you start writing it down, you notice a pattern. And people can
Yeah.
start doing that now, couldn't they? That's a really, really, really good answer. Thank you so much for that. And I suppose it leads me on to my next question really is how when people might want a journal, but they don't know where to do it or how to start it or anything like that. What would you suggest in your expert role as a um, journaling? How could people start journaling?
I think it's a great question because so many people struggle to get started. So, as you said right at the beginning, we hear journaling is good for our mental health. We advocate for journaling. Everyone sort of knows that it's a good practice. But I think there are some blockers that get in the way. And I think to get started, you almost have to overcome some of those blockers. So, without doubt, one of the things people say to me is, I don't want to ruin my notebook. And I think that can hark back to school. We used to write in exercise books and hand them over for external validation, and it would be on our neatest handwriting, and everything would look beautiful and be underlined, and we'd have perfect margins and all the rest of it. And I think what can happen is people still have that fear of somehow I'm going to spoil it, somehow I'm going to ruin my notebook. And I think particularly if you have perfectionist tendencies, you can feel it has to be the perfect layout, the perfect pen, the perfect setup, my best handwriting. And then the first time you make a mistake or you break your own practice or you break a rule that you've made for yourself in your journaling, you just want to abandon the whole thing because you think, oh, I've spoilt it now. And it only takes a couple of notebooks to be ruined, in inverted commas, to put you off because you think, well, hold on, we're all guilty, aren't we, of buying the planner or the notebook that we think will change our lives. We think, oh,
Yes.
this is going to be the one. And then as soon as we spoil it, we think, oh, that's it now. My journal's ruined. I'm never going to look at it again. And it gathers dust. And then we get demotivated about the practice. So what I would say is make mistakes in your journals. If you've got a beautiful notebook and you're scared of ruining it, ruin it on purpose because then it's done. Draw a line across a page, put a coffee stain on it, rip a corner out, whatever it is. And I know some people will be thinking, I couldn't possibly do that to my beautiful notebook. But it's a bit like the first time you drop your phone or the first time you scratch your car. Once it's done, it's done. And you forget about worrying about it and you can just focus. So I think don't worry about your notebook. I think also have rules for yourself that there are no rules. So establishing who your journal is for, I think knowing it is just for you. It is a private practice. It is between you and the page, and that is it. Your words are your own, because often we have a blocker of, oh, I need to keep a diary so when my kids are older, they can read all about what my life was like. Or, oh, I need to keep a diary so that I can passive aggressively leave it open in front of a partner, and then maybe they'll finally understand what it is I'm asking for, or whatever it may be. And I think we have to accept we are worth writing for. We don't need to be performative. And I think, particularly, one of the things I love about journaling is it's not performative. You're not sharing it. I think so much of our life and our hobbies and our fun and our family time, we're encouraged to put out there for external validation. So put it on social media, write a blog about it, publish your Substack, whatever it is. And actually, journaling, no one sees it.
Mm.
And knowing I am worth writing for
Mm.
is such a powerful and empowering tool. And I think I always say to people, if you don't know where to start, right at the top of your page, every thought I have is worthy of being written down. So make that your first sentence. So that is your first rule, if you like, for your journal. Every thought I have is worthy of being written down. And then if you want to write down, I forgot to get the milk today, that's fine, because every thought you have is worthy of being written down. And once you get into that mindset of, I don't need to be witty or profound or articulate, I can just rant and rave and ramble and, waffle on. I think as soon as you get into that mindset, the freedom that comes with that, and again, with no judgment, there's no one to judge you. It is just between you and your page. I think that can be really powerful. And having those sorts of rules in place for yourself also stops that self-criticism or the critique of your work, because there's no need to critique it, because it's whatever you write down is exactly what you were supposed to write down. So I think that can be super powerful as well.
And that sounds so affirming and so freeing, the way you describe that, Stephanie, is that, I can really see people say, right, I've got it now. It's for me, it's for to give myself permission to do that, to not make it perfect, just to allow myself to express myself just for me. That in itself is a very positive, self-affirming act, isn't it? Just to get into that kind of mindset. So that's wonderful. It sounds the way you teach it is a very freeing kind of process to give your people permission to actually start and do that. That's wonderful. Okay. And I know a lot of people that I see, and I'm sure you see as well, sort of, very anxious or overthinkers. And I'm wondering whether there's any kind of sort of way that they could write that will help them with those kind of problems.
Yes, I definitely think there are ways to avoid some of that rumination, and ways to almost, you can use your journal as a bit of a circuit breaker to get out of that habit. So, one of the very popular ways of journaling is something called morning pages, which is where you wake up, you open your journal, and you just write for 3 pages, just free flowing. Even if what you're writing is, I don't know what to write this morning, I'm still half asleep, I really need my coffee. It doesn't need to be anything. And I like the principle. I think it's a great way to set a habit. But the thing I don't like about that approach is, if you are someone who is in the middle of a very anxiety provoking situation, or you're a worrier, or life is a bit stressful, writing free flowing kind of conscious writing can be very prone to circular thinking. So you can wake up every morning and almost write down the same worry, the same anxiety, and you're almost spinning around and around and around. And so I'm a big fan of a prompt question or a prompt reflection to get started if you are someone who finds yourself worrying. So you'll be very familiar with that, that loop, having, clients on a circuit just looping around. So I look for the circuit breaker. So what am I proud of myself for in this situation? So rather than just worrying about that situation, you're asking, how am I handling this well? Rather than focusing on the negative, how do I want to feel about this next week? What is a 1% improvement to this situation I can make to protect my peace? It's those kinds of questions where you're reminding your brain, I don't have to be stuck in this loop. And if you're angry with someone, or you're having that kind of imaginary argument, or you're going around and around in circles, or you suddenly think of the witty retort that you wish you thought of at the time, those kinds of things, you think, oh, I wish I'd said that. I think it's a really nice opportunity to say, how do I make my peace with this? Or maybe I'm a big fan of using journaling tools. So things like a no send letter or that sort of thing, get it all out on the page and then destroy it. You never have to send it. But again, it can just help harness and focus and really get out of your system what it is that you're ruminating on and what's going around and around in your head. And I think it can be an incredibly powerful tool to, like I say, act as a circuit breaker, but also to remind your brain this state is temporary. So if you're asking yourself future focused questions like, how do I want to feel about this in a week? It may be that you say to yourself, well, I don't even want to be thinking about this in a week. Okay, great. So what steps do I need to take? Or what am I going to do today to give myself a reprieve? Or maybe I'm going to utilize something like a worry spot. And I will just worry about this for 10 to 15 minutes today, and then I'll move on. But writing it down reminds you, oh, I've got these tools. I've got this skill set. I've worried about things before that I now no longer think about. It's really getting yourself into a pattern of supporting your brain to break that circuit and think about things in a different way. And I love prompt questions for those, because when we can't think, when we're too riled or anxious or emotional to really be able to think clearly, prompt questions literally tell us where our thoughts should go. They literally direct our thinking. So I find those hugely helpful if I'm in what I would call a bit of a tiz, not a technical term, but just that feeling of overwhelm and stress. Having a question to get me out of that that's perfect. I can feel that sort of release from the trap of the loop.
And am I right in saying that in your Instagram, you actually have prompts?
Yes. So every Friday I release a journal or writing prompt for the weekend. So, and that's completely free, obviously. So I post those every Friday, and every Monday I post what I call words of wisdom. So they are not my words. These are words from other writers or creatives or what have you, just to get you into that writing space. But every Friday there is a free journaling prompt that goes out to inspire you to get some words onto the page.
So that's a real practical tool that listeners can actually go away and join your Instagram and have those prompts. And it will help them perhaps to sort of start as well, knowing where to go or everything like that. That would be really good, wouldn't it? And that's something people can do now and just find you on Instagram. I think the links will be in the actual show notes anyway. Great. Sign me up. I mean, I'm there. And I love the words of wisdom. People love quotes, don't they? There's something inspiring about quotes. It doesn't have to be your quote all the time. I love the way you're celebrating writers and people who actually have these amazing quotes to sort of inspire us, especially on a Monday morning. I love that. That's really, really good. And I suppose you have already mentioned it, but you said that journaling is particularly good for processing difficult emotions. Could you perhaps give an example of someone who's sort of used this journaling to actually help with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we think about, for example, traumatic events, and it's worth saying, I think people often think of journaling as a tool for the worst times, but of course we can journal and celebrate every emotion. So it doesn't have to be something that's very challenging. You don't have to revisit traumatic events, but often therapeutically using journaling as a tool can be very useful. And so, for example, I do quite a lot of work with military trauma, and so helping people process, things that they've seen and what have you. And journaling is very useful on lots of levels. So first of all, people who've been through something very traumatic may not want to tell someone else, not just because they don't want to talk about it. It's often they don't want the other person to know about something so unpleasant. So it could be that you've been through something or you've witnessed something that is so upsetting, you don't want to upset anyone else. So again, your journal is a very safe space because it's just for you. So you don't have to inhibit what you're saying. You don't have to sugarcoat the situation. You don't have to end the sentence with, oh, but I'm fine, really. You can just be very authentic and very honest. But also there is something very literal in the brain about processing trauma because If you are writing side to side, so, in the UK, left to right, going across the page, that bilateral stimulation, we know from therapies like EMDR, that bilateral stimulation helps to process trauma, and it helps the brain to recognize that was then and this is now, and in this moment I'm safe. So with military personnel, it's a really fantastic tool as they write out details of an event that they would never share with anyone, even, the closest people in their life, often even their therapist. They just say, I don't want anyone else in the world knowing what I saw or what I heard, but they can write it down. It just gives that safe space for them to do so whilst they're processing, and it's helping to bring them back into the current rather than living in the past. The other thing that is so useful to do with a really upsetting event, or if someone's made you very angry, or you've got something that you really just want to get out of your system completely uninhibited and just really go for it, is to write it all down and then either tear it up, shred it, set fire to it, do whatever it is you want to do, but really have that freedom to just let rip, because I don't think there are many opportunities in society where we can just let rip. And if someone's upset us, maybe what we'd love to do is scream at them in the street, but actually socially unacceptable, and we're not really built that way. But what we can do is write it all down, really get it out of our system so we feel better, and then just chuck it on the barbecue and never have to look at it again. And I've worked with people before sometimes where we will set fire to things and then stomp on the ashes, really kind of get that anger out of the system. And again, just gorgeously liberating and lovely to have a practice where you can really physically let go of traumatic or upsetting things. You can literally set fire to them or shred them or destroy them in some way. There's a lot of power that comes with seeing something very traumatic from your past or from your life and physically destroying it. I think that can be very, very powerful.
It sounds very cathartic, to actually process all those emotions. And just a question about that. So if you write it all down, do you then read it back, or do you have a choice? Would you just destroy it then, or would you read it back yourself?
I think it's personal choice.
Okay.
I think if it is a real rant, rave, something's on your heart and you've just expressed it and there's sort of no benefit to reading it back, you just needed to let it out, then I wouldn't necessarily encourage someone to read that back. If they were writing something about an event or a traumatic event, I might encourage them to read it back, but again, with prompt questions. So reading it now, what are you most proud of? Or reading it now, where are you still being unkind to yourself? Where is there space for compassion? Reading it now, what would you want to change about how you feel about this event? Those kinds of questions. So you're not just reading it back like you would read, a novel, you're reading it back with purpose. But sometimes there is a joy in just thinking, I'm never even thinking about this again. I've written it all down and now I'm just going to literally, set fire to it. So really depends on whether or not it's going to be useful and it feels useful. Often people will write things in sessions with me and hand it to me and say, burn it. They don't even want to touch it again. They're just like, get rid of it. And again, that could be very, very powerful.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. And I suppose it also gives people choices as well. Once they've written it, then they could decide again what they want to do with that material, whether they want to reframe it or go over it again, or like you say, just get it out there. And I like the way they give it to you and then you burn it. That sounds very very interesting and very powerful as well.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, that's really good. And I think another thing that perhaps gets in people's ways, and you've alluded to it already, Stephanie, is a worry about other people reading their journals as well. You said it's a very private space and everything like that. But if they've got a partner or children, the fear of being exposed, because it might even be about them as well. I mean, how would a person manage that?
It's definitely a blocker and it's something people worry about. So you're absolutely right in that it can get in the way. I personally, there is an agreement in my household that my journal is for me. So the agreement I have with members of the household is I am not writing anything in there that is for them. So if I need to have a conversation with them, if someone's upset me, if there needs to be an argument or something, something needs to be said, the agreement is, well, I will tell you, I'll have that conversation, we'll talk about it. I'm not writing about it in here in the hope that you stumble across it. I think there's also an acknowledgement that my diaries are not in any way salacious or filled with, juicy details of anything, because I just write, every thought I have is worthy of being written down. So I don't think if anyone stumbled across my diary, I almost feel, right, well, you're welcome to it, because if you want to read about this. But in all seriousness, I do think having an agreement in your house, it's a good way to teach boundaries. It's also a good way, if you have children, to respect their boundaries. So you should never, ever read your child's diary, even if you think, oh, I'm worried about what they're writing, I'm worried about what they're not telling me. Ask them. Ask them to write you a letter if there's something that you're worried they're not sharing with you. Ask them to sit with you and journal on a theme together. Do it that way. Do not break the privacy, because you have no right to privacy if you're breaching others. And I think it's really important. And when people trust you're not going to read my diary, then they don't read yours. So I think that's definitely the first thing. I think if you've got littler heartbeats in the house who maybe wouldn't understand that, or, you've got nosy in-laws who maybe have never respected your boundaries or whatever it may be, I think lock it, keep it in a lockbox. It's not something I do, because I almost feel the trust is strengthened every time my diary is visible and no one picks it up. To me, that's re-enhancing that contract that we have of, psychological trust around, privacy and all that sort of thing. But people are often horrified because I take my diary with me everywhere. So I always have my journal with me. So if I'm on a train, if I'm in a restaurant, if I'm in a cafe, if I'm traveling with work, it's with me. And people always say, what if you lost it though? What if someone read it? And I have a note at the beginning that says, this is private. If you find it, please don't read it. And I have faith in people. So I have my number on there so people can return it to me, get in touch and return it to me. If someone decided to, go through my diary and read it, they'd just be bitterly disappointed. So I do think there is something to be said around the realism of what you're putting in there. Again, if you are really worried, then write and destroy. So use loose leaf paper, write and destroy. Use notebooks where you can tear out pages easily. Yeah. So if you do find yourself wanting to write something a little bit more personal that you would never want anyone to come across, you can absolutely get rid of it. And I'm aware I sound quite witchy and ritualistic when I'm talking about burning things, that sort of thing. It's only because I have a terrible shredder. So actually my office shredder is not up to the task. So that's why for me, I just always thought it was easy just to chuck it on the barbecue or what have you. But absolutely, you could do anything, even if you tore it into little pieces. I think, again, that could be very satisfying. But if you're really genuinely worried, try not to let that inhibit your practice. Find ways around it, which could be write and destroy. I know people who never use names in their diary. So if someone's upset or annoyed them, they use a made up name or initials or a pseudonym, so that they're continually kind of protecting their own privacy just in case. But what I will say is, I've got over 30 years of writing diaries behind me, and I think probably that trust has been breached twice. And I think that was probably both times by a teenage older sister just having a good nose. And I think, whatever I was writing at age 12 or 13 didn't quite meet the gossip threshold. And so then it was very quickly disregarded. But I think once you're into grown-up territory and you can have those agreements, then yes, absolutely. Don't let it put you off. Do whatever you need to do to feel secure with your diaries or with your journals, but definitely don't let it inhibit your practice.
Yeah. I have to ask the question, Stephanie, have you ever lost your diary or left it anywhere?
I haven't, touch wood, I haven't.
Okay,
I have
fantastic.
walked away from my diary. I think the joy of having it with you all the time is it's a bit like having your glasses or something.
Yeah.
You just, keys, wallet, phone, journal. You just,
Yeah.
you don't know where it is. So yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's very much attached to you,
Mm,
in a very healthy way. It's always there for you to write in and everything like that. And you have to practice what you preach as well. It's obviously you have to practice your journaling to be able to sort of share your experience as well. Well done for never losing it. That's fantastic. And then trusting people is really good, isn't it? Trusting
mm,
people. And again, it's just giving people the tools to say it's okay, set a boundary, and that's okay. But if you
mm,
are worried, you can do these little tips like keeping names out of it as well, or tearing out sheets or putting on loose leaf if you think it is if you're worried about it, it is very emotional, or you're worried about somebody finding it out, and then you can always destroy it afterwards. Yeah,
mm.
hopefully these are all things that will encourage people to really get into the amazing process of keeping a diary, and how much it can benefit you as well. Journaling, I should use the words journaling. Okay. Um, and I just wonder, I think I see a lot of people who have had problems in relationships. They've been very hurt or betrayed by people. And, it's a bit different from trauma. And I wonder perhaps you could give an example of how you would help a person to journal if that's how they felt.
Yeah, again, I think journaling can be really useful for helping you recognize and build on your own resources. So often, if you've been in a relationship that's been very damaging or very hurtful, or someone's betrayed you or broken your trust in some way, all our thought process and energy and emotion is around them. It's around the other person and what they've done, how they've reacted to us or acted towards us. And it's very someone else focused. And I think where journaling can be so fantastic is it brings us back to us. And it brings us back to, again, we can really look at where is the space for compassion in those areas. So often, and I'm sure that this will resonate with yourself, with your clients as well. Sometimes someone will say to me, "I can't believe I put up with it for so long," or "I can't believe that I, didn't say something sooner," or "I just ignored the problem and hoped it would go away," or whatever. Lots of self blame, lots of self criticism, and journaling is a really good tool to slowly build confidence with, well, what other situations have I stood up for myself? How do I know I can stand up for myself now? So even the fact that someone is thinking, "I can't believe I did that," would tell them, well, I'm probably not going to do that again. Right, because I now recognize that that didn't serve me well. So then they might be journaling some affirmations or some mantras for themselves, like, I uphold my boundaries. I will not tolerate certain behaviors, whatever it may be. And writing them down can really reinforce and make them feel very powerful. So that can be quite an empowering process, giving people those prompts and those questions, but also really bringing the situation back to yourself, and asking, what do I need out of this situation? Because again, everything could be so focused on the other person, the demands they made, the pressures they exerted, the stress that they put on you. But actually, what do you need now to heal? And how do you make that person smaller and smaller and smaller? And again, containing all that emotion into the ink can be so helpful. So really pulling them down into just a few words. Um, so it could be, write 3 words that describe that person. Suddenly they've been reduced to 3 words rather than all your thoughts and all your headspace.
Mm.
So I think if people are in that situation, again, I always love a do not send letter. So is there something that you need to say to them that you'd feel that you just want to get off your chest? And then get rid of it? Is there something that you want to be expressing that you weren't able to? But journaling can really help you find your voice again if you've been silenced. And again, you've got that safe space of it's just between me and my notebook. So I can say whatever I want. I can act however I want on these pages. I can really bring all the attention, focus, compassion, and kindness back to myself rather than focusing on all the negativity that they brought to my life. So it's a really beautiful way of building up those resources and confidence in actually, I'm a good person with a good skill sets and good control and good, whatever it is, I can really tap in to all my resources and build my confidence. I don't have to have this, partner or colleague or peer or whoever it is that's upset us. I don't need their approval. I'm good enough, and here is the written proof. I think that can be such a powerful tool.
It's a great example because I can imagine people who haven't had your experience, your training, doing the, not sent letter and writing all about it. And that's one step which can actually help people to feel as though they're processing and getting out of the system and burning it. But I love the second part of it, which is actually going back to you, your self-compassion, your self-esteem, you're worth it, the affirmations you can write down as well. That's such a amazing way of actually, working through therapeutically with somebody who's hurt or betrayed you. That's amazing. Yeah, really, really good. And again, I can see people, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. I can learn to be more self-compassionate towards myself. That's
Mm.
really, really good. Um, and I just wondered, I think you said you've been journaling since you were seven, Stephanie. Yeah, is
Yeah,
that right?
yeah,
Seven,
long
really?
time, long time.
Probably in your head before that, probably, or even little marks on, before you do. That's really, really good. But I'm just wondering, how do you feel about reading your material? Is there anything that will benefit you or useful about rereading material that you've written in the past?
So for me, this is personal preference. So even though I have been journaling for over 3 decades, I do not have stacks and stacks of books in the attic or gathering dust somewhere. I don't have a single journal about my person other than the one I'm currently using. And that is because my process, certainly as an adult, I probably wasn't doing this as a child, but as an adult, is when I come to the end of my journal or my notebook, I will skim read my way through. So I will go back to the beginning. I'm not reading it thoroughly like a book. I'm literally flicking through and I will pay attention to what I'm seeing. So again, if let's say it's taken me 4 months or so to fill a notebook, if over those 4 months I notice a pattern of I feel really sad about XYZ, or I wish that I'd made time for, ABC, I will pay attention to those patterns. If there's something that is particularly powerful or happy or joyful, I do tend to tear those pages out. So I have pages from diaries years ago from the first day I met my partner, for example. I wrote all about that in my diary like a giddy teenager, and then I tore those pages out and kept those. So there are some amazing, life events, family events where I've written about, and I tend to keep the joy. So if there's something, particularly where I'm like, I never want to lose how I felt in that moment, then I keep those pages. But then I do just destroy the rest. And I think the review is helpful. I do tend to say to people, don't just sort of reach the end of the notebook and have the end. But also sometimes if there are key learnings or key points, I will transfer those over to my new notebook. So things I want to remember about the beginning of the year, or things that I want to focus on, or where I need to be kinder to myself. It's almost like a little opening summary. And the other thing actually that I have in my journal, which is really useful, is a list of things to do if my mood is off. So if I feel low or if I feel overwhelmed or anxious, I have a list in the back of my diary, and it's a list that my partner has a copy of. It's a list that's pinned to our fridge, because when you are overwhelmed, you can't really think very clearly. And so just, it'll be things like cuddle my dogs, go for a walk, bake something, organize my space, whatever it is, whatever makes me feel good in that moment. But it means that I don't have to think. And I always transfer that from the back of one journal to the back of the other. So I have these little crossover rituals that allow me to continue my journaling practice and refresh it and find what's helpful for me. But I'm not a big believer in go back and reread, because I think we can fall into the pattern of critiquing.
Mm.
almost like performance reviewing. Well, how did I do? Did I handle this well? How should I be better at journaling? I think all of that can be unhelpful. So I like a quick skim read, a tear out of the joy, keep the pages of joy and just get rid of the rest.
Mm. I mean, again, amazing techniques, Anna, and I love that kind of writing about your joy and your celebrations and keeping that like a celebration of your life. That
Mm.
can go into a folder and you can just read that again and again and again, and that can just reinforce the joy. But you're actually the stuff that you don't want, you're binning, and also you're trying not to overthink or critique or judge. It's more that sort of personal expression as well.
Mm.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I'm gonna, I'm on it. Start journey. I mean, I love journaling anyway, but I don't think I do it regularly enough. So I think I'm going to take that up and use that. And I'm just wondering also, because I think also it's proven actually scientifically, isn't it? What you said earlier is there something about writing handwriting, which is meant to help particularly well with journal rather than typing. Is there
Yes.
any evidence for that
Yes,
from yours?
huge volume of evidence. So certainly, so again, from a kind of neurological neuroscience perspective, it is the handwriting, it is the physical act of pen to paper, pencil to paper, which is so important. So you can get lots of journaling apps, and some people use the notes pages on their phone. I think some journaling and mood monitoring and all that sort of thing is better than none.
Mm,
So I would never discourage someone if they've found a way of journaling using their phone or their screen that works for them. But what I would say is from a processing perspective, it is the connection between ink and paper. It is the handwritten. Um, and I think sometimes we lose the art of handwriting, don't we? Because we're all
mm.
tapping away, typing away, doing
Yeah.
these things. But actually, that very, very real connection. And again, writing from left to right or right to left, really sort of having that side to side stimulation is so useful for processing. But all the evidence says handwriting is better at processing, at developing memories. So taking us out from the raw emotion into that was then, this is now, and I'm safe now, and helping to feel that safety. All of that comes through handwritten practice rather than online. And the other thing that I think is just worth knowing with some of those apps and some of the programs, what have you, is for me, I would want to know what is happening at the back end of that data. So if I'm pouring my emotions in and I'm typing everything away, who has access to that? Because to me, pen and paper that I can burn feels so much more secure than just sending my thoughts out into the ether. And I don't know
Yeah.
are they being used to train some large language model? Is it,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever's happening to them? So
Yeah.
because security settings can change as well. And I think for me, I would want lifelong security of knowing that my journal is now a pile of ash
Mm,
that's been destroyed than whatever's going on. So I think there are considerations there, but certainly from a brain health perspective, the benefits come pen to paper, pencil to paper. And yourself, Wendy, it's such an important element to have grounding practices when you're
mm.
dealing with something challenging.
Yeah,
And
that's a
again,
good point.
everything is physical. So you can touch the paper, you can smell the ink, you can hear the
Mhm.
pencil. It's all so tangible.
Mhm.
Um, and that can be really good. Those sort of tactile experience of writing can be very good, particularly if you're writing about something a little bit challenging.
Mm. Yeah, that's a very good point. And I also just wondering sometimes in my experience, people have written stuff and come to the therapist, but sometimes afterwards they might still feel a little bit raw or a little bit, the emotions sometimes continue once they've written something, very deep and very personal to themselves. Um, And if that is the case, what would you recommend, perhaps again, a bit of aftercare? I mean, I know you've mentioned the prompts already, but anything else if people just still feel, very, very deep emotion after writing something so profound?
I think it can definitely happen. And to be honest, I tend to offer the same advice that we would after a therapy session. So sometimes talking to your therapist can you bring things to the surface, can feel very intense, the emotion that it can bring up, and our heads can be left swimming, or maybe we have a sort of revelation in a session and we think, oh gosh, I'd never thought of it that way, and then our heads are spinning. So it's utilizing the same tools that we would with therapy, but within our journals. So, for example, in trauma therapy and in processing, you often bring people back to what we call their safe place. So, guiding them back to somewhere in their minds where they feel completely safe and protected. And again, what's so beautiful about words is they're so accessible and they're free, right? So we can access, if there's a line from your favorite book, if there's a line of poetry, if there's something that leaves you feeling contained and happy and felt, I think that can be really powerful. So sometimes closing a practice with a line, I really like some of the poetry around things like, and still I rise, those sorts of sentences. So if someone is feeling very emotional or very, I guess, activated in some way by something that they've written, it's being able to bring that back to a place where they feel comfortable to leave the page. But also the other thing is you can come back to your journal whenever. So unlike therapy where you may have to wait till the next session or what have you, if something's really stirred me up and within half an hour it hasn't calmed down, I'll get back out my journal and I'll keep going until I feel better, or I'll make a note or a keyword. Sometimes one of my favorite ways to end, if someone is feeling very emotional or they're carrying a lot of weight, is "and yet." So it's almost all this is going on in my head, or I've been through all this and it's all, brought everything up for me. And yet, because what you're saying to yourself is, and yet I'm still going, I'm still here, I'm still persevering, I'm still building my confidence, I'm still focusing on myself, I'm still worth this attention, whatever it is. So I love that. These are my favorite words to say to doubt, is sort of, and yet. So when doubt turns up, you say, and yet I'm doing it anyway. And so I find those just two words sometimes can be very helpful to sign off your journal on sometimes.
And again, they're simple, powerful words that people can remember. You could put that in the front of your journal and then remind yourself of those words, can't you? And even after everything you've been through, you're still here, you're a survivor, you're still there, you're still dealing with stuff. I love that. That's really absolutely wonderful. And you've given so much information. I just wonder whether, just for the listeners, Stephanie, you could perhaps just give 5 summary key tips for journaling so people can just sort of take those key learnings away, because you've given so much information. Would that be okay, just to give 5 key strategies that people can write down and take away?
Absolutely. So I would say the first one is make a rule for yourself that your journal is just for you.
Okay.
So have that agreement. My journal is mine. No one else is ever, ever, ever going to see it. I am worth writing for. So I would start with the basic premise, so that if ever you think, oh, is this a waste of time? Should I be doing something else? You can think, no, I am worth writing for. So I would make that agreement first and foremost. I think if you're struggling to get started, start with the sentence, every thought I have is worthy of being written down. So give yourself a starting sentence and permission to write whatever you want, whatever's in your head, whatever's on your heart, just get it onto the page. I'm a big fan of trying lots of different ways of journaling all in the one notebook. So if I can offer a third top tip, it would be try lots of different things, whether it's lists, it's bullet points, it's doodles, it's drawings, it's current me, future me, where you're thinking about where you are now, where you want to be. If it's smiley face, ratings of your mood, whatever it is, do it all in the one notebook, because the temptation is I'll have a book for my gratitude journaling, I'll have a book for my weird and wonderful, I'll have a dream journal, I'll have a daily journal, and before you know it, you've got 8 notebooks on the go, none of which you're ever looking at or remembering to fill in, and I think that can be very very tiring, actually. And again, I think having an openness to journaling to match your mood, your energy, and your time. So again, not being afraid to try different things. Journaling doesn't mean you have to sit there for hours and hours writing page after page. Journaling could be a one-word summary of your day, and you just track those summaries and you track your mood. It could be a smiley face rating. It could be color coded. It could be a beautiful bullet journaling spread. It can be so many different things. But I think matching your energy and your time and the constraints that you're working in is so important, so that you're allowing yourself the freedom to journal so it suits you. It shouldn't feel
Mm,
like another thing to do on the to-do
mm,
list. It should be a support.
mm,
I always think your journal's your best friend and your companion, and it should
love it.
feel like that. So
Love it.
yes, yeah, I think that's five.
It's brilliant. I love it. I love all those. And Stephanie, because you've given such amazing information and so much skill involved in that, I'm sure lots of people would like to keep in touch with you or know a little bit more about the resources you've written, and how to access you. And are you okay just to give a little bit more information as to what you have available for people to get to know a little bit more about you and what you offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So I run free journaling workshops. So these are done online, so people can join from wherever. And they are introducing journaling, so a kind of introduction to journaling. So it would very much be an expansion on this conversation. You know, how do I get started? How do I overcome blockers? And I like to give people some weird and wonderful ways of journaling so that they don't feel stuck in one way of doing it. So we explore lots of different ways, what they can look like, how you can get creative, but also how you can do it if you've got 2 seconds between meetings, you know, to just jot something down, how to utilize those times. So I advertise those on LinkedIn, but I also advertise them on stephfitzwrites.com. So as in Stephanie Fitzgerald writes, but just a lot easier to type in. So stephfitzwrites.com. You can register for those. I run seasonal journaling workshops where we invite the season that we're in onto the
I
page.
love that.
Again, they're completely free. So they are 30-minute sessions, again, run online, and they are every season. So spring, summer, autumn, winter. And again, it's just a gorgeous, cozy space to tune into the nature and the season
Yeah.
around us and bring it onto our page. So, and again, you can register for those on the website. And then pretty much everything to do with writing is at Steph Fitz Writes. So that's on Instagram, that's on Substack. And again, that's where I share journal prompts and resources. If I run something very specific, so say, for example, for children in schools or for journaling for anxiety or journaling for anger or that sort of thing, I will usually record it and host it on the website or share it on Instagram as well. So if anyone wants to find anything at all or ask me any questions, they're very, very welcome to get in touch either via the website or via Insta.
Yeah, thank you very much, Stephanie. That's a great comprehensive way of starting that process. I mean, and who would not want to go on one of those training courses? You know, the introduction to journaling. It sounds fantastic. And those links will be in the show notes. So if people haven't remembered it, you can just go to the show notes and access your information there. So Stephanie, it's been an absolute joy having you as a guest, and thank you for being so generous with your passion. And I think what's great about journaling is available to everyone. You just need a pen and piece of paper. Most people can afford that, but the actual richness and the joy that you can get from this process is actually amazing, isn't it? So thank you so much for being so generous with your information.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me and happy journaling.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for listening. And please subscribe to the channel because who wouldn't want to hear a guest like Stephanie doing such an amazing job? So thank you and please subscribe.